Yo, what's going on YouTube? It's your boy Vince Cartier, and today's video we're going to be talking about scales. Now, before we get into the topic about scales, we're just going to be talking about making beats on the whole, actually the theory of making beats. Because when we're talking about the theory of making beats, I know a lot of persons may think, oh my god, like the theory is so boring, like it's so much to learn. But trust me guys, it's something that you want to have under your belt. It's something that you need to have. You don't need it, but trust me, once you have these different theoretical parts of music theory and which you can have into your arsenal of tools, trust me, you guys will be unstoppable. So let's talk about what a scale is. A scale is like a road map. You're trying to get from point A to point B. But in order for you to get from point A to point B, you must know where you're going. Now, you're unfamiliar with this area, so in order for you to get to this area properly and in the shortest amount of time possible, because we know gas is expensive and we have things to do, it's best to get a map. And once you have that map, you can then map out exactly where it is that you want to go, that can cause you or allow you to get to this point in the shortest amount of time. So that is what a scale, it's not what a scale is, but it's like what a scale can be. So once you have your scale, you can choose 8 notes from that scale that can help you formulate a melody. So in music, we have a total of 48 scales. Now, once you know the 12 major ones and you have about the 3 of the minor scales, because there's 3 forms of them. It's the natural minor scale, it's the harmonic minor scale, and it's the melodic minor scale. But we're going to take this in steps. Now let's get into it. So scales are a collection or a series of notes. Now, here in the standard Western music, after 12, the pitches repeat, but in the next higher register or octave. Once you understand the concept of intervals, scales will be pretty easy to grasp since they're just made up of a series of intervals. So here it is, we have our intervals. This is interval 1. Interval 2, interval 3, interval 4, interval 5, interval 6, interval 7, interval 8. Now, these intervals are all based off of the C major scale. And remember when I was saying in the beginning that a scale has 8 notes? Well, here are your 8 notes for the C major scale. Now, there are 12 major scales in Western music. And for each and every one of these notes that you see here, there is a scale that is for that note. Well, major scales. All right, so there can be a major scale and a minor scale that are going to be attached to these notes which you see here, but we're just going to be covering the major scales and the 3 different set of minor scales for today. So we have a formula, but in order to understand that formula, I have to teach you guys something about whole steps and half steps, because you can figure out any scale in any key by knowing the interval formula for the type of the scale you're looking for. So for clarity, let's just say W equals whole step and H equals half step. Now remember, a half step is the smallest interval there is, and on a piano will be just 1 key away from the note that you're starting from. So this note here is just going to be a half step away from this present note that the cursor is on. And when we have a whole step, is made up of 2 half steps. So we have from 1 half step, this is the first half step, and this is going to be the second half step. And when we have 2 half steps that are placed together, that is going to be called a whole step. So half step is the note that is right next to the note you're starting from, and a whole step is when you have 2 notes that are joined together. Now, let's get back onto scales. The major scale formula. This is how you form any scale that is on the piano or any scale in Western music that is based on the major scale. So the major scale formula is going to be W, this is our whole step, W, W, H, W, 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 H. And if you look at the piano, and if you look at this scale diagram, not a diagram, but the MIDI regions that I have here, right? We have the formula, which is going to be a whole. From C to D is a whole. From D to E is another whole step. And from E to F is going to be a half step because there's no notes in between. And we have from F to G, which is going to be a whole step. And from G to A is another whole step. And from A to B is another whole step. And from B to C is our half step. And that is going to wrap up our major scale. And I just did a beat to it so you guys can hear what it sounds like. Here we go. And what we have next is we have the natural minor scale. It can be thought of as a major scale with the third, the sixth, and the seventh note lowered by a half step. So in the major scale, this third degree would have been here. But since it's the natural minor scale, it's going to be lowered to the E flat. And if we have the sixth degree, which is supposed to be here, it's lowered now to the A flat. And now that we have our B, it's lowered. It's now going to be B flat. And this is the natural minor scale. Let me play so you guys can hear what it sounds like. One more time again. So that is our natural minor scale. Let's go on to the harmonic minor scale. So the harmonic minor scale is just like the natural minor scale, but the only difference is that the seventh degree is the only note that is going to remain the same. It's not going to be lowered. So all of the notes we have C, D, E flat, F, G, A flat, B, C. So this is what the harmonic minor scale sounds like. And our last scale, and what we're going to do is, if we have time, we're going to make up a beat out of the melodic minor scale. Now, the melodic minor scale is very tricky because it has two forms. It has one form ascending and it has another form descending. So its name implies is used mainly in melodic lines. And what's interesting about this scale is that it's different going up than it's coming down. In its ascending form, the only, check this out, the only note that is going to be lowered as it descends. So this is going up and this is coming down. So we're starting from this side of it. All right, don't get confused. These two notes are the exact same way, but I'm just going up the scale and then I'm coming down. So as we're coming down from this C to this note to that note to that note and so forth, the only note as it descends is it's going to be a plain old natural minor scale. So the very first scale that we started off with, this scale right here, this is going to be the exact same scale coming down. All right, so I'm going to play it for you and I want you guys to listen to what it sounds like. This is the melodic minor scale. Here we go. Sorry guys, I made a mistake. That was definitely not the melodic minor scale. I just wanted to make sure that you guys were actually using your ears and listening. All right, so that is not the melodic minor scale because we have this simple mistake, which is an E, and this is supposed to be an E flat. So here is the correction. All guys. So that's our melodic minor scales. That is all of the scales actually. And what you guys can do is you can apply these different scales to different keys and make good music, man. Let's do it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make a beat out of this, and let's see what we can make out of it. Yo, so what's going on YouTube? So just a recap of what we talked about in the video. We talked about scales. Remember, in the scale we have 8 different notes. Well, the scales that we looked at today, we talked about the major scales, which we have 12 of major scales, and we also talked about the minor scales, and we have 3 different forms of those minor scales. We talked about inharmonic spellings. That is when you have 2 spellings for one note. Remember, when you're going to the right of the piano, the notes are getting higher, so we say sharp, and if we're going to the left of the piano, the notes are going lower. And we also talked about octaves. An octave is when you're doubling the frequency of that note that you're on. So if you're on the C, and the C, just for example, the C was a 2, and if we was to double that 2, it would actually be 4. The next C would be 4, and if we was to half that 2 or lower that 2, it would actually be 0. But now you guys can actually follow, you can comment. You know what, I'm gonna leave it to you guys. You can do what you want to do. We're all producers, we're all trying to get better. So if you feel like this video is gonna benefit you, subscribe, like, comment, and let's get on with it. Peace.